Hello friends, welcome to FUMC People. This is a show where I interview people in our community here at First United Methodist Church of Gastonia. Today features my interview with Juston Smith, Reverend Juston Smith, our associate pastor here. Today we'll talk about his call, his musicianship. He's a musician, I don't know how many of you know that, worship arts, and the ordination process as well, and more. So please stay tuned and listen to this interview with Juston Smith. Either one.
There's, you got narrative, like just regular story.
Right.
Allegory, like Jonah. So people would say that's allegory.
Oh, okay,
Not
sure.
literal, just you still get something out of it.
Yeah.
Parables, things like that.
So what's your favorite genre, do you think? Or do you not have one?
I don't really know if I have one.
Really? Do you have a
History.
favorite book?
History.
Oh, history, right, absolutely.
I don't know if I have a favorite book or not.
Really? It's easier for me to say I have a favorite book. People are like, what's your favorite Bible verse? And I'm like,
I don't have a favorite Bible verse.
I felt, at one point I was like, I don't know if I'm really a Christian because I don't know what my favorite Bible verse is.
No, right?
It's like,
that and,
yeah, but I really like Daniel. Like Daniel's a cool book to read.
why is that?
I don't know, it's just a nice story. I feel like it's interesting. Yeah. I'm thinking. Maybe not.
That's a good thing.
So you were at Bellwood before you came here.
Yes.
And how long were you?
Sorry,
What?
do I need to talk like really loud?
Not necessarily. My audio setup's not great, but I don't want to be
Okay.
too
Gotcha.
weird about this.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So how long were you at Bellwood?
I was at the Bellwood Charge, went there in July of 2014, so I was there about 2.5 years
Okay.
before they moved me here in November last year.
Right, yeah. And and so that was a charge where you've got more than one church, which is, and how many churches were in that?
Bellwood consists of 3 churches. It's
Yeah.
St. Peter's, Knob Creek, and Kadesh. And most people would say if they saw Kadesh, they would say it's Kadesh,
Oh.
but they've always said it Kadesh, so it's
Right. Okay. Kadesh.
Kadesh, Kadesh.
Okay. Nice. Which was your favorite? No, I'm kidding. This is a joke. No, but like, so, and then you and Alyssa did a camp recently there. What did you call it?
Yes,
Like
so-
a workshop?
Yeah, I was good friends with Reverend Kathy Turman, and
Mhm.
she's up the street, or was, to me, she was up the street at the West Lincoln Charge,
Mhm.
and that's 3 churches as well.
Oh, okay.
And we worked, we were a part of a mission network, kind of like First is a part of a mission network. And we were really close with one another, closer than any of the other churches. And so we did missions and projects and things, worship things together.
Yeah.
And she's really passionate about worship arts, like designing worship, using fabrics, and being visual, dance. She loves to dance.
Right.
So she had her second annual, because last year was her first, Worship Arts Week that she put on.
Okay.
Because she's been to the Worship Arts Week at Lake Junaluska. She's done all that before, and she wanted to do something local, so she needed my help. Last year I helped her with hand chimes. We didn't use real bells, but
Yeah.
hand chimes. And then this year I helped her a little bit with that, but they had somebody else doing that was just out a day.
Yeah.
So I just went back and helped for that day. And Alyssa went because I told her, Alyssa does a lot of art, paint art and calligraphy and watercolor and
Right.
things like that.
Yeah.
So she taught them how to do kind of Bible journal art or paint over hymns, things like that. And she taught adults how to do that. They love it.
And that's a huge passion of yours, like
Worship
worship
arts.
arts in general. And I mean, I guess you don't usually encounter someone who is talented in different areas. Usually you find like a musician or a preacher or a lay speaker or someone who does like design, but you're pretty good at all three of those things, aren't you? I mean,
I suppose. I don't know.
like, that's rare, don't you think? I mean, how many people do you know who, I mean, I guess, but when you're the guy, like when you're at a charge and you're like the main worship leader, right? Isn't that, like, what's that like? Am I making too many assumptions here?
No, you're right. When you're in a smaller church or even in the rural church, those churches are really lay-led.
Yeah.
Because they have to be.
Right, right.
And because they're sharing a pastor, but they're still doing full-time ministry in each of those locations.
Yeah.
Yet, as the pastor, you're in charge of all of that stuff, and they look to you for that leadership.
Right.
And giving them, empowering them, and really encouraging them to do things on their own. Like, you don't have to have me to do it.
Right,
but,
sure.
let me know and let me help you in any way I can.
Well, and you may jumpstart it too, right?
Right. So
Yeah.
one of the coolest things we did, well, two things that we did in Bellwood. One is they have a very strange, I'll just say it's strange, worship schedule because of being three churches. A lot of them that are on three churches, like Kathy Turman's, for instance, would be 9, 10, and 11. That would be their worship schedule every Sunday.
Okay.
The Bellwood Charge is not like that. The first Sunday of the month, it's 9, 10, 11.
Yeah.
And then they do that, they had an order to that, and whoever was the 11 o'clock rotated off. So the next consecutive weeks of that month were 10 and 11, and it just rotated.
Wow.
So what they told me, on the 5th Sunday, we have Sunday school, and that's it.
Huh.
So one of the neatest things that we did is I said, well, we don't need to have nothing on a Sunday. We need to offer something.
Yeah.
And I don't need a day off. They were playing it as, oh, you get a free day off, it doesn't count towards your vacation. Like, well, I have nothing else to do. This is why I'm here.
Right.
So we started doing intentional outreach days.
Yeah.
And one of the coolest things we did was when I went there, there was a new principal coming in at the local elementary school. He was United Methodist. I got connected with him, and we planned a worship and a work day the weekend before school started. So pretty much like this time 2 years ago, we were putting together a worship and a work day, kind of like the main event's going to be this year with worship and some work things that can be done throughout the weekend.
Yeah.
And so we put all that together, but I empowered them to do it. Some of them were skeptical, like, we don't work on Sunday.
Yeah.
Like, well, you're not doing anything else. So, we're not taking away from worship because there was nothing planned on this day.
Right, yeah.
So, like, it was a perfect setup. Like, we're not ruining it. We're not changing up anything that you've done because this is completely new, and we're taking the time that would ordinarily have nothing.
Right.
So we had a community turnout. We actually had a church up the street who wanted, I think may have been just a little upset that we were going in because they were closer to the school than we were, and contacted us and wanted to kind of get in on it, which I wanted them to, but they ultimately didn't come because they were in charge of it. They wanted the name recognition with going in. We didn't care about that. We were just going because that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah, it's the wrong reason.
Yeah,
sure.
So I didn't. So that didn't happen. But we went in. We had worship. We had a vacation Bible school for the kids. They did a rotation. So while the adults were working, the kids, we had 4 different age ranges, kind of like what we do with VBS here, and they just rotated around the school campus to different activities and music. They had music. They had art. They had story time, and they had recreation. Just like a vacation Bible school for the full day, as the adults were putting mulch out, cleaning classrooms, organizing school supplies, all of that stuff. So it's really neat there to empower a rural church to get grant money funding for that, to help them know that they're not just out in the middle of nowhere and can't do anything.
Yeah, sure.
They have plenty of hands and feet to do ministry in that area. So that was really cool. The second thing that was really neat was I used to do, what do you call it? When you preach sermon series. Sermon series. And I would take just random things I would find. Like I got a postcard in the mail for Concordia Vacation Bible School, and it was all of it was around Jesus teaching around the Sea of Galilee. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, this would be just a cool sermon series. Here's the theme, and we decorate for this and publicize with this. Nice. So we did that, And I got each church to decorate their sanctuaries as if we were around the Sea of Galilee.
Wow.
So two of the churches, one church had a boat. Somebody brought their metal boat, painted it brown so it would look wood. Put the net up. We had fake water everywhere. So the whole chancel was filled up with boat and reeds. The other church had a canoe with reeds and bamboo sticks and nets, and it was just really neat to see them take that and run with it. I didn't have to do it.
So,
I gave them the idea and they did it for me.
do you feel like when they do something like that, does it get them more interested in what you're talking about? I mean, do you feel like they're more engaged?
Yeah. I think when they're able to interact with the story itself, you get more out of it. You feel like you're a part of it. Right. So for those that helped to decorate the sanctuary, coming in each week, they were a part of the story. Yeah. And when we were doing children's time, for the children to be around the boat and around the water, talking about that story, it was more interactive with them. Yeah. To be a part of the scenery, right. To enact the story, to visualize it. Sure. Out of, I'm sure we could see it in our brains, but to put that into tangible objects was beneficial.
Plus it builds community.
Right.
And it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it made, instead of worship becoming something that they felt like was stagnant and they came to, it showed that we can be creative. Yeah. Our sanctuaries are beautiful, but we can do things in them. Yeah. And they took hold of that and did it.
Is there any like early church, like is there any like, you have like in the original Catholic Church, you have like stained glass windows and stuff. I think it's kind of similar. What is this more of a modern thing? I don't know a lot about the history of worship beyond, like obviously I know 500 AD to like 1100 to, you know what I mean, but
I would guess like our stained glass windows.
Yeah. What's
interesting here that our stained glass windows are really just colored glass. There's no story in the windows.
Yeah.
So I think for most of those things, those are telling a story.
Yeah.
Putting visuals to the scripture, to the words.
Right.
And I think that was probably modern for folks back then to do that.
Yeah, sure, of course, yeah.
And even the symbols that we use in worship still. So for the sanctuary instance over there, the carvings in the chancel area around the altar that talk about the apostles.
Right.
All of these things, on the pulpit where there's the root and the tree, being grounded, being rooted.
Sure, and I know
growth,
those are really
growth from all that. All of those things, I think they do tell a story. That's the point of the symbolism. We don't worship them. If we did, it would be idolatry, and sometimes we do that. Right. We like it so much and we don't want to mess with them.
Yeah,
and that becomes a problem. But I think the new modern thing.
It's crazy to think of that as idolatry. I guess it is.
Yeah, it can be if you hold on to that as your image. You're focusing on the wrong thing.
Right.
You should be able to worship without that even being there. But it's helping us in worship to tell a story.
Sure. So I mean, I catch myself like when that speaker was gone, and I'm like I was mad about it, and then I finally was like, you know what? You don't really need anything. Yeah. Why am I mad about this?
Yeah. But it's who we are. We like our things.
Yeah.
But they do help tell a story, and even some of the modern things we do over here, just like I don't know if they can see it in the camera or not, but the red and the fabric and all this that's still up for Pentecost season.
Right.
That's telling a story. It's not that I'm bowing to that or I'm worshiping those colors. Those colors are telling me about the fire of the Holy Spirit. Sure. Those modern ways continue to tell the story. We do tell it in ways.
Sure. So, and you grew up in Stanley, which is like really close.
It is.
To here, I mean, what is it, like 15 minutes?
Maybe 15 minutes.
Yeah. And what high school? So were you like born around here?
Mm-hmm.
And then so you lived there like the entire.
Yeah, grew up in Stanley.
What did your dad do?
My dad worked for the North Carolina Air National Guard.
Oh wow! Okay.
And was a crew chief on one of the C-130s, and then eventually was in the quality assurance. So whenever they did maintenance on planes, that was kind of like the inspection after the fact.
Sure.
Weight and balance on planes, all that type of stuff. I mean, just that's a lot of stress. Think about C-130s and all the work that goes into those. But
sure,
he did that.
Wow. Yeah. See, I grew up near Fort Bragg, so I'm pretty familiar with C-130s.
Yeah.
Although everybody might be, I don't know. But so where did you go to high school?
I went to East Gaston.
East Gaston. So did you, like, at what point did you know you wanted to be a minister? Like, were you in high school thinking you were going to become a minister? Or?
It's a very, well, the pastor part's very short. The ministry part's a little bit longer.
Sure.
As far as ministry, in high school, my home church was going through a cycle, as all churches do, and we were on the downward end of that cycle. It was me and a few other youth, late middle school, it was about 3 of us, late middle school, early high school or so. Mm-hmm. And we did not have anyone that taught youth. And so I remember on Wednesday nights, at one point, we sit and do it ourselves. So taking a bad situation actually helped me to be put in a position on leadership in the church. Prior to that, I had been doing, I had learned to play the organ at the age of 5 by ear and all that. So I had been doing that on and off whenever needed, or just for special things, like, oh, I played the prelude that day or whatever. But in high school is when that became more of a thing that happened. So when I came home when I went to college, every time I came home from college, I was on the organ, because I didn't have things that happened. There was a pianist, and now when I came home, I had to play the organ. After graduation at Appalachian, I came back home. I was working at Channel 3 overnights.
Oh, okay.
I was...
and what is Channel 3?
WBTV.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's like a big... That's not like a... That's... Wow. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Cool.
I was working with John Carter.
So did you major in communications?
Yeah, communications, broadcasting,
okay. All right.
So graduated, started working with them, and overnights, which is you go in at 2 a.m., you get off at 7 a.m. So it was part-time, but it was Monday through Friday, and sometimes it was Monday through Saturday when they added the new Saturday morning show. And edited video for all of that. Was working back at the church, doing some music, playing along with some things, helping with the youth. While I was in college, they had created a connection with the Montagnard community. A new refugee group was coming in, and so we had a larger group of youth coming in that were being assimilated.
Oh, yeah, I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, it's from Vietnam.
Sure,
and so they were being assimilated into the culture, and we were helping embrace them in a youth program.
Can you say that again? Montagnard?
Montagnard.
Montagnard.
Yeah, it's like Montagnard, Montagnard.
Okay.
Montagnard.
Oh, wow. Yeah. All right. And that was, after you had graduated from college?
Yeah.
Wow.
So, started working with them. They had a youth person at that time, and we had a great relationship. And doing that, I noticed a lot of other things happened behind the scenes to where I became the church musician.
Okay.
Again, downward spiral, I'm not going to go into all that, but things happen in the church.
Yeah.
And so I became part of the music department and was working with youth, spending a lot more time at the church than I was at the television station. So I was just sleep schedules, all of that stuff. So this is where the next step in that ministry needed to happen.
Yeah.
So I was at Channel 3 2008 to 2011. It was the summer of 2011 where I was having trouble sleeping, felt like I was having acid reflux, or I was having, I don't know what heart palpitations are, but I'm guessing it's like that fluttering, or just you feel like your heart's about to come out of your chest, just weird heart racings.
Yeah.
And be trying to go to sleep so I could get up at 1 o'clock to get to work. And it was just, I just knew that, okay, this is speaking to me. This is a message. And that message was, you need to go back to school. You need to go get a master's degree in divinity. You know, if you're going to be in ministry, you need to get the degree. So we had an interim pastor who taught at Hood Theological Seminary. He was gone at this point, and when I was just looking at schools, for some reason that just clicked. Hey, what is Hood? There's something about Hood. I looked up Hood. It's endorsed, it's sponsored by and funded by the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, which is after St. Stephen's neighbors, or AMEZ.
Right.
And so it's an approved seminary for United Methodist because we're Methodist.
Right. Sure.
And so I applied, and when I did that, it was this thing between me and God. I said, if this is the case, I don't have the money to go back to school. If this is the case, then certain things are going to have to fall into place for you to really show me this is where I'm supposed to go. And so God sent them the letter, and then a few days later they called me and say, hey, you're in. And I was like, all right, well, that's good. But your orientation day, I'm in a wedding that day, and I can't come to orientation. So you need to work, that's another thing. Like, well, this has to work out for my benefit for this to be the true next step for me.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, you can come on this day, meet your advisor, we'll give you a tour and all this other stuff. So I go and I do all of that. And I'm still in my mind thinking, well, the money thing hadn't come yet. So I meet with my advisor, and I go back to the front, I turn in my form to register for the classes. And the financial aid officer came out and she said, we just finished our scholarship meeting, and we have this scholarship. Nobody's applied for it. You should apply.
Wow.
So I said, okay, print me out the form. So I turned in the form, and the next day they called me and said, okay, you've got the scholarship. It's $1,000 a semester. And so Margaret Woodson endowed scholarship. You have it, for the tenure of your 3 years here. So that was pretty cool to be the first. It was the first one, so I got the first endowed scholarship. Anyway, wow. That worked out, so that's pretty cool. So I worked up at Channel 3 up until the Friday, and then that next Tuesday I started seminary. So it's just like that. I didn't know the pastoral thing. My plan was I'll get the degree, work in home church, continue to work in music ministry, all that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. The pastoral part did not come in until...
So were your studies centered around music then? Mm-hmm. No? Okay.
No, it was the Master of Divinity.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
sure.
Full program.
Okay.
Nothing. The only thing music or worship-based were that required like worship class, preaching class,
right.
Hymnology class, that type of stuff.
Well, I guess that was a silly question because they may not. I don't even know if they have music classes there. Or
the only thing above that I did was I used a lot of my electives for Christian arts and Christian education.
Okay.
Type things.
Sure.
But the whole emphasis was just to get the education. I continue to work at home church.
Right. Sure.
So
is that because I know you typically in seminary people continue to work at some church.
Yeah.
And you just stayed in home church.
Yeah. I just stayed in Charlotte. I'd go up to Salisbury, stay the week, and come back. I'd come home. I'd come down to Charlotte on Wednesday, do choir, go back, and then come back on Thursdays and do the weekend and go back. So it's just traveling about 3 or 4 times a week.
Okay.
It was worth it.
Anyway,
yeah.
So
it wasn't till the fall of 2013, about October, November of 2013, the Western North Carolina Conference would come each semester. So Kim Ingram and at that time Sally Queen would come to the campus and talk with the students, United Methodist students, about where they were. And so I went in and I was talking with them, and they were saying, so what are you doing? What are your thoughts and all this other stuff? And I was explaining to them, I worked in television. I really like the broadcast aspect of things, taking technology and somehow embracing that with the church and all that other stuff. And Kim Ingram said to me, so you want to be a televangelist? And I was like, no, that's not what I'm saying at all. I don't want to be a televangelist. I don't know if she was serious or she was joking. I haven't asked her. I told her that since at that time I met her. But Sally Queen was right beside her, and Sally just looked at me and said, "What are you waiting for?" I said, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "What are you waiting for?" I said, "I don't know." And she said, "In December, we have a candidacy retreat. It's not anything you're signing up for. You come, you learn about ordained ministry. That gets you in the process to candidacy. It's 2 days, and it was here. Like I always had it here. So I came in December, and I've started candidacy. I took all my tests. I did all my psychological evaluations, all that stuff. I joined a mentor group for the next few months. We met about every other week. Trip Ward was actually part of that mentor group with me.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we started that process together.
Nice.
So at about January, I'd only been on this a few months. So about January, I saw Sally. She had asked me, "Will you come and present at an IDK event?" Which was the first thing. It was the first IDK event, which was I Don't Know. It's a youth calling event. And
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
So she wanted me to just talk a little bit about where I grew up in ministry, about music ministry, and people that influenced me. Just talk about influencers in the life of the church. And so after that, she was about to go to the Holy Land, and I stopped her and I said, "Is it too late to ask for an appointment?" And she said, "No, call your DS." So I don't know why. That's just where it was.
Yeah.
I wasn't certified as a candidate yet. Nowhere. I hadn't graduated. I had not done the steps that were needed to even be appointed anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Sure.
I, called my DS, emailed my DS, I said, "Okay, let's talk." So I chatted with him. We had a good conversation.
And the DS, I guess we should say, is the district
Yeah, district
superintendent
superintendent,
who
yeah.
appoints.
Yeah,
I
they
guess
go in the
it's
cabinet, bring all the names, and the bishop, and they disperse everywhere.
Okay. Yeah,
And
sorry.
so I had a conversation with him in Charlotte, and then I go and I continue my candidacy group. And in April, you had to write some questions, answer some questions, and you met before a district committee on ministry.
Yeah.
They call it the DCOM.
Right.
And,
Yeah, I've heard of that. But
yeah.
I never know what people
Yeah,
are talking
so it's
about.
the DCOM, the district.
I know embarrassingly little about this for someone who's been.
Oh, well, you'll learn.
Anyway.
You'll learn.
But so this is.
Yeah.
It's good for me. Anyway, keep up.
So DCOM, I go before that group, and really what you're doing in that group is you're telling your call story.
Mhm.
So I just, for about 30 minutes, you have about 30 minutes with them, and you just talk and have conversation. And after that, they said, "Okay, we certify you as a candidate." And
Like immediely, or do you have to like, go out?
that day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay,
that
cool.
day. You sit, they come together as a large group, and then they have a conversation. Like, yeah, we're certifying you as a candidate for ministry, and so that then allowed for me to be appointed as a local pastor. And so I graduated in May at Lake Junaluska in the summer of 2014. I was licensed as a local pastor, got sent to Bellwood.
Okay.
And
Oh,
so that's how quickly that happened from not being in a pastoral role to being in a pastor. So within, you want to say 6 months, if that,
Yeah.
Well, actually 4 months, because I knew in April that I was going to Bellwood.
Oh, okay.
So that's when they really,
But then when did you actually go?
July 1st.
Okay. All right.
So they tell you about April, end of April, or 1st of May is when you get the calls or get the letters about where your prospective move may be, appointment may be. And so it's weird, it's kind of funny that within 4 months, I go from not being anything to a certified candidate to being appointed as a local licensed pastor.
Yeah.
And then within that next year, have writing papers, going before DCOM, going before the board, the Conference Board of Ordained Ministry,
Right.
and being approved for a provisional membership.
Right.
So
Sure,
it was
sure.
really quick. Those steps for me happened very fast.
Yeah.
From not thinking that's where I was going to that's where I'm being led to be.
And I guess now, I'm just going to check this thing just because I ran out. We're good.
Okay.
So, and you're doing that. You're doing your second round now for
Yes.
elder.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
So yeah, I started writing a few weeks ago. Those papers are due January 2nd, and the interview will be February 6th, 7th, or 8th with a group of 6 or 7 folks from the board.
Do you feel like you're constantly growing in this process? Like being at Bellwood, like, is it, I mean, what is that like? I mean, did you ever have a moment where you're like, uh-oh? Because, I mean, like you said, you went pretty quick. Not that you weren't qualified or anything, but.
I think,
not uh-oh, I guess, but just like, oh, wow, I'm really doing this. Or.
that, probably, because it's like the first week, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Like, you know, you feel, I got a degree. They say I'm qualified. They see gifts in me that I'm called to do this. They've certified me to do this.
Yeah.
But you don't feel like you are, you know, in a sense. Like you're just kind of, that's yours. You're the pastor.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right. So what do I do all day? You know, what do I do? But it quickly comes to you. It quickly happens. Going from sitting in the home office, you know, looking at things to try and do to, bam, in the next few months, you know, places going nuts. You know, things are happening everywhere. Ministry is happening.
Wow.
So you just become intertwined in it.
Sure.
And you forget that you don't have to do it because you're doing it.
Right.
So, yeah, I think, I can't speak for other pastors, but I would say that probably a majority of us at some time during each week, if not every day, wonder or question if we are qualified, maybe the wrong word, or even if we're worthy to do this.
Well, I know, I mean, imposter syndrome is a real thing in a lot of careers. I mean, you know, I don't know if that applies to the situation, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It's got to be a huge undertaking. I wouldn't want to do it. I mean, not that. I don't know. I don't know if I should have said that out loud, but I mean, it seems like a huge. I mean, especially like some of the pastoral care. I mean, you got to, you know, people. There are times when people really need you, and then I'm sure you're, you know, you think, man, I'm really the spiritual leadership here. That's a huge.
Yeah, I think when you take a step back, I think that's the part. That right there is the part. It's when you really look at the overall scheme of things, and in, say, here in Gastonia, or even and I would probably say even more so in a rural community such as Bellwood,
Yeah.
you're an important person in the life of that community.
Sure. Yeah.
People I did not even know knew who I was in Bellwood. You're that Bellwood pastor. Or you're, you know, not just the Bellwood Charge, like, you know, everybody in the community knew you were the pastor. And that's a huge responsibility. And you had to take a step back when you're talking about the spiritual aspect of that. When you're in the midst of hearing people's stories, when they are vulnerable enough to tell you things that they wouldn't tell anybody else, they trust you to tell these things to you, the things that have happened in your life. And you, in some form or fashion, have to bring about God in it all, you know?
Right, yeah.
And without really knowing how it happens, you know, when you're with somebody who you're with a wife and you watch the husband take his last breath, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
I've never seen anybody die before. I've done the funeral, but I've never been in that part of it.
Yeah.
You know, what happens? What spiritually am I supposed to do here? And in that moment, I'm not supposed to do anything. I'm just called to be there. Just to be there. But personally, I think maybe this is just me, growing spiritually, I'm called to do that too personally. You know, we all are, personal holiness. And, it's the Wesleyan way, being perfected in love. But it's hard when you're in the midst of all these things that you think you have to do, you've got to do. Sometimes you neglect your own spiritual care.
Oh, sure.
Pastoral care for yourself.
Yeah.
And you think you're getting it, but you're not. And then if you're not spiritually being fed and healthy, then you can't provide anything for anybody else.
So how do you make sure that you do that then?
That's what I'm struggling with.
Oh, you're still learning how to do it. Oh,
I'm struggling with that.
Okay.
I tried some things in Bellwood. I was a part of a mustard seed group every so often. It was about 6 or 7 weeks on and off. And, you just did kind of like a Lectio Divina type thing, which is just reading through Scripture and seeing what you pull out of it. It's a fancy word for, just reading Scripture several times and looking at words and maybe how the Spirit's talking to you in those Scriptures.
Okay.
And praying. That's about it. I was a part of those types of groups. Being a part of the residency in ordained ministry group, that's required, but thankfully it is required in this provisional process because we read, we continue to read, and we continue to dialogue about theology and about health, and we have that time to release what's going on in our lives in a covenantal relationship, accountability.
Right.
But personally, sometimes by yourself, that's hard because, when you're done here for the day,
Right.
and you go home, you kind of just want to sit for a minute and you don't pick anything else back up. At least I don't. I don't pick anything else back up. And I've got to figure out the routine that best works for me to continue to be fed. And I think when we start getting back on our small groups that are starting in the next few weeks, helping lead those, it can be beneficial. Yeah. And it may even be, how can I participate in one and not be a leader? Maybe finding something like that.
Sure.
In Bellwood, you got the South Mountain State Park, so you get things like that. Activities, such things are, if you take your Sabbath day, like Friday is mine, and you don't do anything except embrace nature and creation and be a part of what God's got you at.
Yeah.
I do have a kayak, but I haven't got it on the water. I tried last Friday.
Is it like with a skirt and everything?
No, it's the sit on top.
Oh, nice.
Kayak.
Okay. Cool.
And I got it off my car, but I couldn't get it to the water. So.
Oh no.
I put it back on the car and got back, and I couldn't get it to the water. I got halfway on the path trying to carry this sucker, and I was like, once I get on the water, I got to get this thing back out and pull it back up this path to my car.
Sure.
So I just can do it. And I started feeling sick halfway down, I'm exerting way too much energy trying to get this to the water.
Right.
So that's a whatever. But so maybe one day I'll actually get it in the water with it.
Sure, you figure that out. Yeah. Where was that? Where were you?
I went to Belmont to the Catawba River.
Oh, okay.
And there's a new park there. There's an older landing near like Dale's Super Ed or whatever, but then there's a new park, and it has a landing, and it has You can sit your kayak in, and it has bars, and you push yourself out into the water. It's got these little rolly things, you know.
Gotcha.
And this would be perfect. I couldn't get the darn thing down to it. It's too. I don't have the muscle to carry.
You're like, this is supposed to recharge me.
Yes, it took everything I had, and I'm sitting in the middle of the path. I just want to get home. Like, this is not fun.
What about like practicing music or learning new music? Is that recharging?
It does.
Yeah.
I do a lot of that at home. There's actual piano in the an actual piano. There's actually a piano
Right. Yeah.
in the parsonage in Bessemer City, and so I'll play piano some at home at night. Just go through old anthems or other music that I've collected along the way. Sometimes I'll go in the chapel here when I know nobody else is here in the building,
Right.
and play the organ up in the chapel.
I think I've heard you doing that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was like, because I'm here a lot when nobody else is here. It probably would have been a Sunday or something.
It could have been a Sunday.
And I came in and I heard organ music and I went in the sanctuary and there was nobody in there. Anyway, so yeah.
So yeah, I do that. And I've actually.
So would you rather play the organ? I would imagine than the piano.
Yeah, depending on music, but yeah, the organ is more my thing than piano.
Sure. Yeah.
Started trying to read more.
Yeah.
You said something about that outside of my office, like, "Oh, you read a lot." And really, I don't, and I need to read better.
Well, you had that Richard Rohr book.
Yeah, which I want to start. I read the introduction.
Oh, okay.
But it's like, it's a really good book, and I want to, because the introduction was amazing.
Yeah.
I got to continue to read this.
Yeah.
But finding like the actual, when I get home and I sit down, it's like, I'm unshot.
Sure.
I'm unshot. I don't want to look at anything because I'm afraid I really want to enjoy that book. And I'm afraid if I open the book and while I'm sitting there, I will overthink it. I won't enjoy the book. I'll look at it as a textbook and I won't remember anything I read.
Well, I do a lot of audio. I do a lot of audio. I read a lot of audiobooks or listen to a lot of audiobooks because I have long commute.
Right.
I mean, I guess yours is like, what, 20 minutes?
No,
15?
12 minutes.
Oh, it's only 12?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So
So by the time I got started.
But I'll be running,
listening
listening to audiobooks.
Yeah, it's just.
So, anyway.
But I did read I read like a mystery novel. So I started to change up my night routine. So I'll get in the bed and read a chapter.
Sure.
So I read the mystery novel. Man, it was like a 300-page mystery novel. I read it like 2 weeks because I got into it.
Right.
It didn't feel like work. So
Sure,
what I've got to do is tweak my brain to think the theological books that are interesting to me are not work, but are,
well, it's
just
still
fun
heavy
reading.
though.
Yeah.
And like sometimes that stuff, especially like Richard Rohr, he'll say one sentence. I've never read any of his books, but I've seen him speak.
Yeah.
He'll say one sentence, and I'm like, wait a second, I gotta pause that.
Yeah.
I gotta digest that, because it's like rich. It's rich. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But like with a mystery novel, you could, space out for 3 paragraphs and still be okay.
Stay back in it,
Yeah.
But I did start last night an Elaine Heath book. Elaine Heath.
I'm not familiar with it.
Elaine Heath was down in Texas. I don't remember what school, but now she's like dean at Duke. Divinity.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so
I guess I should know who that is.
But she does a lot about intentional missional evangelism.
Yeah.
And so there's this book, and that's part of the required reading for a residency.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when it's due, but I already have it. And I was like, oh, let me read this because it's a thinner book, but it's still about Paul and the Galatian church. And so I started reading it, and I read 2 chapters of it last night. So it wasn't as heavy, I don't guess, as a Richard Rohr, but it was still, it's helping flip my brain into reading churchy stuff outside of the church. So.
Yeah. It's also, that's the thing too. It's nice to be required to read stuff. I'll be honest, I wouldn't read it so much if I didn't have to. I'd still read. But, I mean, yeah, it's nice. So, let's see. What do you prefer? Black's barbecue or RO's barbecue?
I've had neither.
You've had neither? Man, you and Alyssa, you guys.
We grew up.
She was the same way. I asked her that question.
I mean, I grew up in Stanley, but
Yeah.
barbecue was like we went to Old Carolina. Now it's Old Carolina, but then it was Carolina Country barbecue, Hillbillies barbecue.
Yeah, well, Hillbillies. Good. I like
Hillbillies. And then my home church used to have a yearly barbecue, so that was the barbecue we ate.
Yeah. Oh, right. Well, did you get, was it like pit cooked? You guys have like a big pit cooker that you use?
Yeah,
or something?
cook the butts and chop it up and grind it up.
Sure.
And,
Yeah, my
do that
father-in-law.
and bring it out next and heat it up.
Sure. Yeah, my father-in-law is a firefighter, and the fire department does that.
Yeah.
It's really good. But, so, what show are you binge watching right now? Not to put you on the spot, but
I watch Big Brother.
oh yeah, that's right. I've heard you say that.
I've watched that ever
But
since.
you can't binge watch that. That's like,
Well, that's true.
I guess
But
if you DVR it or something.
I do, my schedule, I do make sure that I watch it when it comes on.
Sure. Yeah.
That's just part of the thing.
What do you like? What do you find so interesting about that show?
I think it's just.
I've never watched.
Here's my thing about this show. Let's just throw ethics and all that crap out the window, okay?
Yeah.
You have an opportunity to go onto a show, and the whole point of the show is to scheme and to lie and to. I mean, that's why you sign up. Like
Yeah.
you know that going into the house, that you create alliances, and you play the game. That you play the game. You lie and you try to get away with it. That's the point. You know,
Okay.
it's nothing personal. People, I think what happens is, of course, we're going to take it personal. But the point of it is, you're not supposed to do it personal. It's just you're supposed to just connive and do all that behind the scenes stuff and get people voted out until you're the last one there, right?
So people get like really ticked.
People get really angry. And like, I'm playing with integrity. I will not lie. And I'm thinking, why don't you sign up for the show?
Right.
That's the whole point, is for you to lie.
Yeah, sure.
And to create alliances, to play together and backdoor people and win the show. That's the point.
Okay.
So that's what I want people to do. Like, if you're going to sign up for the show, do it.
Okay.
Don't get all like high and mighty in there. Like you're the most perfect. You signed up because you wanted to win $500,000.
Yeah.
That's the point. So do what you got to do. They're giving you the opportunity, free reign, other than being on public eye for 50-some weeks, or not 50-some weeks, but 50-some days.
Right.
I mean, watch what you say and that type of thing. But we're watching to see how you're going to play this puzzle.
Right.
That's the fun of it. So do it. Lie. Play the game.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I know it's awful, but it's a show. It's a show. It's for fun.
Yeah, sure.
It's for fun.
Not in real life. You
Not in
would
real
never
life.
condone this
No,
behavior.
not condone this in real life.
Yeah, sure.
But it's a game.
Right.
It's a game.
No, I can watch it. I've never. Although I don't have cable, so.
It's like Survivor,
Yeah.
and that, and just like any of the others, like even the adventure one, the great the race,
yeah,
the race thing, the Amazing Race. Even with that one, you gotta cheat people here and there, so you get to the place first.
Right.
But it's the game. It's a game. It's a game. Have fun. Enjoy it.
Cool. It's like, that card game where you're supposed to lie, except on greater state. Is there anything that you want to plug that you've got going on here?
We we have some really cool things starting up very soon. A lot of cool small groups. I think we're starting in September. Throughout the season, the fall semester, if you will, on and off small groups. Some really neat things. We've got a new fresh expression of worship starting September 10th.
That's right.
Yeah,
Man,
so,
I forgot about that.
September 10th.
I should have been asking you about that.
Well, here's what I can tell you. Starts at 3 o'clock. We're going to gather out here, the bus area.
Oh, nice.
We're going to meet with our homeless folks. Whoever's there is there.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to pray, just embrace, and be in community with them. That's it.
September 10th.
September 10th,
at
3
3
o'clock.
p.m. Okay, all right.
So we'll have that. And be looking on Facebook following worship services.
Right.
So Sundays, right after worship, I'll post a question. I'll do a little live thing real quick.
Nice.
I'll pose a question.
Cool.
And then on Tuesdays, we'll have a set time on Tuesdays. We'll get that scheduled in to where you can join us. And we'll have a conversation on Facebook Live.
Great.
Or maybe Boxcast. However, so we're going to stream. We'll have a conversation revolving around the worship service. Something that may have happened in the worship service. It can be as random as why David Christie quoted such and such to the actual deepness of the scripture of that day.
Right.
So, just a whole spectrum of conversation.
So it could be like Funyuns.
It could be Why the Funyuns, which I still don't know because I wasn't here to hear any of the sermon.
Okay.
I was in 3 worship services and didn't hear one sermon on Sunday.
So do you have any, are there any like new albums or anything that you recommend that are out right now? Music?
No.
What's one, okay, last question.
Yeah.
What is one like daily spiritual practice that you recommend that has really affected you in a positive way? Something that you do every day. Or regularly. I guess it doesn't have to be every day.
It's something that I need to get back into doing. I was doing this before annual conference, and you come back, your whole schedule's out of whack. But getting up in the morning and doing like 15 minutes of yoga.
Okay.
Like, I'm not good at it, but just the stretching and the calmness, the breathing, the peaceful aspect of that was energizing for the morning.
Well, thanks. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
All right.
So,
Anytime.
the Reverend Juston Smith, everybody. Thank you.